this is Kimberlea, and Yoga Snack is our bite-sized podcast where Robbie and I serve up nourishing discussions on yoga, astrology, nourishment, and mindset.
We mix wisdom with personal experiences to serve up quick, insightful conversations that nourish your practice and add flavor to your daily life.
Ready for a quick bite of wisdom? Let's dig in. Welcome to our next episode of Yoga Snack. I'm Kimberlea.
And I'm Robbie.
And today we're going to explore the stars in a really broad, general way with you. We're going to talk about the sun signs. The reason that I think astrology is something I pulled into my life and my practice is it's another way to organize and to understand parts of ourselves. And when I really realized that the moment I was born, in the exact spot that I was born at, like in that exact moment, the stars were mapped over the top of me in a certain way, that those big, powerful planetary systems have this organizing system that influences me. And what organizes the universe is also what organizes us, like the spirals of the galaxy and Fibonacci's number and the golden ratio. Like there's all of these recursion of patterns that happen. And just like in the last episode where we kind of talked about our flavors, right? Like I came a certain way. If everybody was spicy ginger, how boring it would be, right? If everybody was comforting chai, how uninteresting life would be. But the fact that we have all this variety and diversity inside of these organizing principles, once we start to really understand how that influences us, we can really lean into who we are. So that's why I really have started to preference the stars and kind of lean into it. And I also, I think it's kind of fun. I think it's something interesting we can look at and see. And like with everything, it's like, I don't know, keep what works for you and disregard the rest. But today we're going to talk about our sun signs, or the sun signs. There's 12 of them, and just a little bit about them. And I'm going to have Robbie, he's done some more study on this than I have. So I'm going to let him kind of talk about what it actually means. What is a sun sign, Robbie? What does that mean?
Like you said, when the moment you're born, the stars and the planets are in a certain position in the sky, and that snapshot of the stars and the planets is exactly what your birth chart is. It's just where were they whenever the moment you were born. And when we talk about the sun sign, that's basically the position that the sun was in, or zodiac sign that the sun was in the moment you were born. So for me, I'm a Pisces. Okay. So at 6:07 p.m. on March 16th.
Where were you born?
In Canton, Ohio.
Okay.
Yeah. So any astrologers, you've got it now. You've got all my information. Yeah. So Pisces was where the sun was at the moment I was born.
Okay.
So that sort of dictates the lens or the view that I see the world through.
Mm-hmm. And the sun is such a powerful, like, obviously it's so powerful, and without the sun, we wouldn't be here, right? And to understand that as a force and a power, right? We've even captured solar, rays to create, solar panels and to generate energy. And so there is this power and this magnitude, and the sun, I think, is really obvious to see, right? Like we know when it's really hot, we're like, it's so hot, the sun impacts us. When there's no sun, we're like, or the sun is further away and the weather changes and we're colder. So we can kind of feel that on a physical level too. So I think the sun signs, we can all really like, okay, I maybe could understand that. I think the other thing that's really beautiful and sort of poetic is that we are elemental, and like your sign, Pisces, that's water. Yeah, the water is sort of the presiding element there. My sign, I'm a Leo, is fire. And as we understand, these elements, like the whole system of the universe and the things that we don't even understand have these elemental groups inside of them. And so as we understand, it's like, how do we balance it? But I think what's so beautiful and poetic is that we are actually stardust. And when you think about that, you're like, how am I separate then from the organization of everything outside of me? Like whatever's organizing the universe, that creative organization, and it's chaotic, right? And it's really mysterious. There's actually dark matter, which we don't, there's actually more dark matter than there is, I guess, is it called visible matter? I don't know. Either way, but dark matter, but we are stardust. And for us to think that there's not some sort of relationship to the grand schematics of the universe in us, I think it's a little short-sighted. So that's sort of why I've, embraced it. And I think it's really poetic. It's like, I'm stardust. And so are you, listeners. You're stardust. So we're going to dive into the signs a little bit. Robbie's going to take us through just a really brief overview of them. And hopefully it's interesting for you and you learn something about it. And I think this episode, I'd like everybody to just shout out what their sign is and if they learned something or how they identify with themselves. So,
yeah.
So what do we start off with?
So we start off with Aries. And that's anyone who was born March 21st, April 19th. Aries is the ram. It's a fire sign. So
Go fire.
When you think of the ram, you think of like this, at least I do. I think of the horns on top of the head, and the rams are always butting against each other. And that's kind of what we can expect from the personality traits of an Aries is a little bit aggressive will, assertiveness. They're good leaders because they're willing to take the reins and they're willing to jump in head first. And with that, it's usually a strong personality, a healthy ego, all the fun things that come along with that fire. Especially, they love to compete, but not just compete. They want to win. So there's that extra bit of drive there, to where it's just a little bit more driven thanks to that fire element.
Okay. And what about, are there any negative things, like one thing, because we always have that like shadow side, right? What is the shadow side to Aries?
Well, like most of the signs, your strengths are also sometimes your weaknesses. So with that, assertiveness is sometimes some impulsiveness, like acting without thinking things through all the way. That aggressiveness shows up. Sometimes it helps. Sometimes it can be a hindrance. You can be overly confrontational or combative with people when you're trying to assert your point, and impatience, which I think we all have a bit of that, but just like struggling to be able to wait and becoming frustrated.
Yeah, that burning desire, right, can do the best of us instead of being able to have that slow burn, right? As a fire sign, I'm always like thinking like, how do I keep this sustainable? How do I keep this sustainable? I'm not an Aries. I have a child that's an Aries, though. I have a really good friend who's an Aries, but really big personalities in my personal life that I've experienced, really beautiful, big personalities, but also go-getters and like flame on, like burn down sometimes. Burn down the person or the situation in a way that demolishes instead of tends to. So yeah,
Aries is that, so it's a start of spring, so it's a cardinal sign. So that fire burns hot. It's hot and it burns fast. And it's not necessarily a sustaining fire, but it'll light quick.
And we need people in the world that are passionate and fiery and take action. So what comes next?
Taurus is next. Taurus is the bull. So
rammed bull.
Right, rammed bull. So April 20th to about May 20th. Taurus is an earth sign. So everything that involves loving the world, spoils from victory. It's also, Taurus loves to compete and loves to win, but it loves the to get the flowers
Mm-hmm.
from the victory. Physical pleasure. So it's everything's earthly. Everything is that physical touch. Material goods are important to a Taurus. Yeah.
They tend to be kind of sensual, right?
Yeah.
But grounded. I think of the bull like sturdy and reliable, dependable.
Sure. Absolutely. And when we think of the bull, we can go right into the toxic traits and
bullheaded.
What? Yeah. It's right there in the name. Will not change their mind. Possessiveness, being overly controlling, especially in relationships. They love that, those worldly delights, and they don't want anything getting in the way of how they want it. And like I said, materialism, placing a lot of value on possessions and wealth, spoils for victory.
And when it's balanced, right, then it's like learning how to find pleasure in life and to appreciate art and just the textures and the contours of life that sometimes we skip over. But there are all these really sensual ways to be in the world. But anything, right, like out of balance, it becomes like it's driving us instead of us driving it.
Sure. And if you think about the time of year that Taurus season is, it's spring. We're starting to get flowers and greens starting to come back. So you're just reveling in all of that worldly goodness that's just coming to you.
Life is coming and sprouting, and it's like soak it in and take it in and enjoy it. Yeah, cool. And then where do we go?
Gemini. Twins, May 21st or June 20th. Gemini's an air sign. Very quick moving. There's two sides to every situation, and they will oscillate in between those two sides. Very practical, very intellectual. Curiosity is a big thing with the Gemini. Communication. Gemini's ruled by Mercury, and that's Mercury is all about communicating, and that's Gemini's trait. That clear-mindedness that comes with Gemini. So they're thinking about everything, they're working through it all, and they're assessing that intellectual mind.
And what about, I can imagine it's probably like overly intellectual, indecisive, because you can see both sides. Like, is that sort of...
Oh, that inconsistency, frequently changing how you see things.
A long-term relationship I was with a Gemini. Yes, but no.
So you know all about.
Oh, like, I'm like, make a decision.
Yeah, that indecisiveness, just always seeing that having that dual nature showing up. That's Gemini, that's the twins. And there's a little level of superficiality with the Gemini, always being concerned with appearances and surface level things. So they can think things through, but the unbalanced version of that is not necessarily going to that depth and staying surface level.
All right, so we had Sun, and then we had Earth, and then we had air. So this next sign must be
water. Yeah.
Okay.
Cancer. Crab. We're in the summertime now, June 21st to July 22nd.
The solstice.
Okay. Yeah. As soon as I think of the crab, I think of that shell that the crab inhabits, and the crab and the Cancer sign always has that love of their home, of their family. It's about nurturing the family, protecting the home and the family, and they've developed that hard external shell and
soft gooey center.
To protect that. Yeah, that watery, sensitive aspect of the crab and of the Cancer.
Yeah.
Always trying to protect that and make sure that there's nothing's getting into that hasn't been pre-approved or allowed to interact with that part of themselves.
What's interesting is, like, in the chakra system in yoga, the second chakra is Svadhisthana, and it's ruled by the water, and it's very much our emotional world too. So water and emotions and the moon, and so I'm gonna guess like this is a very emotional sign.
Oh yeah.
That whole watery essence of moving through the world and really feeling deeply, which I'm sure is wonderful and also really difficult.
Sure. Yeah, it usually shows up in exactly that, the moodiness, extreme, frequent mood swings.
Are you a water sign?
I am a water sign. I'm a Pisces, so the fish are.
We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. We're swimming through those.
I shouldn't want you to, breeze past Pisces, just in case we dabble in here. So, but also imaginative and creative, right?
Yeah.
Like they have a big, like, inner world that they're churning and moving things through and making new things all the time inside. Yeah. But yeah, I think that imbalance shows up, like you said, like the moodiness, and I can see like with the, like especially with the phases of the moon, right? The moon is changing, and if the moon can impact, the water and the tides, if we are more of this watery sort of presence inside of our, even though we have all of those elements, but if we have sort of water as that presiding element, our ability to phase in and out, even with the moon, is probably different, to pay really close attention to the moon cycles when we're these watery signs.
Oh yeah, I literally have to take a full stop when it comes to new moon, full moon more for my own good, and so I don't overdo things.
Yeah.
New moon especially, it's like I'm out of commission for a couple of days.
Yeah.
Floors me a bit.
Yeah. And I think that's what else, this is an opportunity, like with the signs. It's not to be all like, limiting around ourselves, but it's like, know yourself, like pay attention and start to notice, like, are these things that you can start to dial in and really hone in and find a way to be yourself, and to take better care of yourself too. It's not to be superstitious and decide you can't, go out and do this with that, or you have to marry a certain sign, or, we can go down a rabbit hole with any of this stuff, right? But it's like, can you know yourself more fully?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, the best sign is next.
The best sign. I heard that this is the best sign.
I heard that too.
Leo.
Leo's the best sign. Okay.
Yeah,
I've heard that.
I've heard that quite a bit.
What's the date?
So we're looking at July 23rd through August 22nd, and it was the fire sign. Maybe we should let our Leo talk a little bit about what it's like to be a Leo.
What? You mean me talk about myself? Is that a Leo trait? He put his fingers up.
Yeah, for those of you who aren't watching, it's a little bit of the Leo trait.
Yeah, well, I think when we're balanced, right? Because I think it goes both ways. I think we're really passionate. I think we tend to have sort of that leadership, like that lioness quality of like, this is my pride. These are my people. We're doing this together. Let's go, everyone. And that there's some of that bold energy and that fire. But I think too, that confidence can also be obnoxious. I think, that there is just that, where it becomes too much, right? That fire burns too hot. And really quick, funny story. My friend who's an Aries, we were on vacation together, and we are just two fireballs. And she was skipping down the road, and she has this trait where she will sing any song on the street at the top of her lungs, dancing, she doesn't know the words. And we were in another country, and they were playing, Ecuadorian music. And she's like at the top of her lungs. And we were laughing about that. And she's like, hi, I'm an Aries. My toxic trait is I think I know the words to every song. And then and so she like pointed at me and I was like, hi, I'm a Leo. And I don't think I have a toxic trait. That's my toxic trait. It's like calling ourselves out on sort of our obnoxious behavior because there is, I think, that tendency. So I want to take the floor from you, Robbie. Give you the lead back a little bit more. Tell me more about myself.
Tell you about yourself. Wow, this is always a tricky thing. So like ambition, strength, creativity,
Stop.
personal magnetism for sure. And like you said, that warmth of just like inviting people to pride to the instant group. It's definitely a strong force with the Leo. Toxic traits, maybe some arrogance, just having an inflated sense of self-importance, attention seeking. I'm not saying this correctly.
I know.
Those in general.
Like, how am I going to put this? But here's the thing. I think that I think it's true, right? And it's like my friend and I joking around about it. Like we're joking. It's funny because when we bring humor to things, it softens us and we can work with them. And it's like also owning it because there are parts of touching my microphone. There are parts of the way that I am that this is the way that I am. And so it's embracing it, but it's also guiding it and steering it so that we're not, like as a fire sign, I'm not emoliating everyone, right? I'm not burning so bright that I'm burning stuff down.
Yeah.
But there are things in the way that I show up in the world, the way that you show up in the world that are really important. Mm-hmm. And there's things that you do that I can't do. And the same, I've heard that people,
I heard it.
I'm just driving it home. Okay. All right. And it's funny because I'm like, literally, I'm like, why would you even want to be another sign? But I think I own that because there was such a large portion of time that I didn't know myself and I didn't know what my strengths were or that they were even strengths, and it's like hiding. Mm-hmm. I did a lot of hiding and concealing and trying to be different than I was. And it's like finding that balance, it's like, I didn't realize that not everybody wants to be in charge of something or someone or and I'm just like, you just want to help. You don't want to be in front of everyone. You don't want to talk to people. Like you don't want to be and I didn't actually understand that. And that there are people who, and of course, I think we even talked about this earlier in just a conversation between you and I, like, I can, stand up in front of people and teach a really beautiful class, but there's so many things that need to go into that there does need to be these support networks, and that supportiveness is actually what then amplifies people who do step into a leadership role, right? That it's about supporting that, and it's a collective, right? That it's this collective energy where everybody fits in to a place, and it's not that the leader's more important than anybody else. And I think a good leader, in those types of roles knows that. It's just the position that they're in and how I wield it. So enough about me. Enough about Leos.
Enough on Virgo. Virgo is near and dear to me because I'm a Virgo rising. So I can relate to a lot of these.
Say a tiny bit about rising. Maybe we'll do a whole other episode.
So
just say what
the rising sign, if you're looking at your chart or the map of the stars, the rising sign, let's try not to get too far into this. So if you're looking at the horizon when you were born, and over here is morning time,
okay,
and over here is sunset. So basically, the moment you were born, whether it was nighttime or morning time, when the sun crests the horizon and starts to enter the sky. So that moment you start to see the sliver of the sun, whatever rising sign that is, that's what your rising sign. At 6:07 p.m. when I was born, that day Virgo was on the eastern horizon.
Okay, got it. So it informs.
It informs you a little bit, yeah.
All right. So what are the dates for Virgo?
Virgo, August 23rd to September 22nd. And Virgo is an earth sign. Virgo is the picture of Virgo is the goddess. So
Grace.
Very graceful, very intentional. With, if you think of a goddess doesn't move just
impulsively.
Right, exactly. So Virgo has a lot of those qualities: punctual, precise, an attention to detail, exacting standard that has to be maintained. They're always thinking sensibly and practically and projecting that onto the situation. So they're always watching whatever's happening. The Virgo always has their eyes on the situation, is looking at it in those sensible, practical lenses, which when it comes to the toxic traits can be and a little unbalancing, where you get a little overcritical.
Perfectionism.
Yes. Everything has a fault. Always finding the faults. Frequently finding the faults. Perfectionism, like you said.
And that anxiety that comes along, right, with perfectionism.
Right. Just always mind whipping. Always obsessing over what the situation is. Often the Virgo will disregard their personal well-being and overwork themselves because they're always just trying to perfect.
Yeah.
And
that's
maybe a little
hard.
bit longer I'll work on this.
Yeah, and that's hard because the society, that we're in, this culture that we're in, rewards us, demolishing ourselves in the sake of XYZ, right?
Yeah.
So interesting to just note and be careful around that, and self-care and being kinder, and knowing that perfectionism is a toxic trait. It's not a striving way of doing business or life or anything, because it doesn't exist.
Right. It's not,
not
attainable.
Yeah. I tell my students, when we're practicing, I'm like, there is the only time we attain perfection is when we're dead. You can be perfectly dead, but you can't be perfectly anything else. Because it's like, here we are trying and trying and trying and trying. And it's like, no, life is a little messy. That's what keeps it interesting. And to embrace that, right? But that perfectionism really is this unattainable, and it's this stuck place that we get because we're never good enough. So,
right.
But I think too, like the discipline in a balanced Virgo is admirable. Like, I'm always admiring people who have that drive and discipline and that follow through. And attention to details, that rigor that can come along with something, and be really detailed oriented. So
yeah, Virgo's a good example of that. Like, your strength is also your weakness sometimes. It's not balanced.
The blessing and the curse.
Yes, exactly.
The blessing and the curse. We had so much fun with this topic that we decided to keep it bite-sized and split it into 2 parts.
Stay tuned for part 2 next week. See you then.